Wow, this is like a real 1970s talk show now. First of all, I just want to say that this is a special treat for you because this is not only a cookbook, but this is literally a family affair. And this is a very rare thing to find this incredibly close, loving family building something together. And the only reason I'm here is because this is a family of writers and movie stars and Emmys and strong, courageous women, and they're so humble and selfless that they will not brag or talk about themselves, so they had to bring somebody else in, and that's why I'm here. Mama Bear Corky, I'm starting with you. This is the matriarch of the family. This is where I don't know much about the grandmother, great-grandmother, but you are the cook, and you created amazing Thanksgivings and Hanukkahs, and you started this incredible family of cooks and food connoisseurs. So tell us about your upbringing. Why'd you become such a foodie?
Well, my mother was a fabulous cook, and my grandmother also was a great cook. And I grew up just loving being in the kitchen, and I found it a very satisfying place to be. And at a young age, I started making things in the kitchen. Some were total disasters, but some worked out. And I just continued to cook. And then when the kids were little, I sort of brought them into the kitchen often. And when I went back to work, I often counted on them to start dinner for me. And I think that my love of cooking sort of translated and became something that they love to do also.
Now, did you guys learn by watching Mom, or did you read cookbooks? How does that work? Tracy.
Yes, Ali. I mean, Julia Child was always like front and center. That was she just loved cooking from Julia Child. But I don't ever remember really reading a lot of cookbooks. You would get an idea about what you wanted to cook, and then she would sort of give us jobs. And that's how we learned, you're going to be cutting the broccoli, and you're going to be slicing the potatoes, and, we
So you had a sweatshop going while you were at work.
Whenever I could.
Yeah. And what about you guys? When you were cooking for Mom and everything, did you guys add stuff? At a certain point when you love to cook, you put the recipes down and you start saying, I'm putting, turmeric in it. I don't care. I'm doing this.
I remember when Corky was working at New York Magazine, and she would often have us start dinner. And I remember then we'd sort of begin to get a little creative because she wasn't there.
So a lot of marshmallows.
We would do a little bit of our own thing.
Yeah.
Well, Laurie,
And she was happy with that.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I screwed up my first job as a moderator. I interrupted you. I had to go. No, I was just wondering as to what you were saying, and that with putting together recipes and not looking at the book. I always think like with Tracy, I feel like I sort of got you can taste with her fingers. Like when she's putting in ingredients, it's like, how do you know what that does? How do you know that that's enough? And it's just like she just can do it. And do you feel the same, like just an affinity for what ingredients are and what they'll do and what they'll bring out, and knowing what those relationships are with all those tastes?
It's very interesting because I think when you grow up with somebody who cooks, like Corky did, that it just becomes second nature to know, let me add a little of this and let me add a little of that. And she created this thing that gourmet meals were every day for us. And I remember that when I was in high school, I would throw dinner parties where I would cook a gourmet meal and thought that was a normal thing. And I dressed up in one of her gowns and served chicken Kiev to my friends.
No, that's not normal. That part of it's not normal.
And I want to add to that Neither Dana and I were ever invited to those dinner parties. We would spy on her.
And we would watch.
And we'd watch, and then she'd throw us away.
But there is, and I can pretend I'm a Pollan sister and say that with your family, and Michael Pollan is your older brother-in-law, who writes incredible books about food, that something happens in the kitchen when you cook and when you sit down and when you eat together. In my opinion, it's more than food. It's, I always say to my kids, you know, we have family dinner every night so that you're not on drugs when you're older, you know? So I think it's more than the cooking, though. It is what brings people together, you know? And some people, maybe you're in your living room, you play mahjong, or I don't know, you all go out to a bar and do shots. But the Pollan family is a family that so much goes on in the kitchen. And so I naturally want to ask, do you guys all cook together, and how the hell does that work out? Because I would not be speaking to my sisters if I cooked with them.
We do cook together a lot. I mean, especially for holiday meals or even weekends if we're in Connecticut. And it works out really well. I think we all know our place where we're at. And it's just really fun and really, you know, we experiment and we create, and it's just a really fun time.
As a spectator to that, it's really great to be
Spectator.
Well, like if
Aren't you the tester? I mean,
Poor Michael, it's a
in
spectator
House of
sport.
Connecticut, I'll be watching football, and you smell this incredible smell coming from the kitchen. You go in, and it's like this beehive of activity. Everybody's in there, they're all working, and you like looking over their shoulders and dipping your fingers in and getting yelled at.
yeah.
What I was going to say is sometimes there's such a huge group of us, though, that we'll make something like Lori and Dana make this amazing, for Thanksgiving, these sweet potato pancakes. And it's so time consuming. They start at like 2 or 3 days.
Takes
in
forever.
advance. Takes forever. There's like 23 people. So everyone sits down at the table and they go, okay, everybody can have between 1.5 and 2. So sometimes there's like a little stress with the amount of people and making sure there's enough food.
But you know, if you follow these incredible people on Instagram, you know when they have a holiday and the cousins are there, it looks like a University of Syracuse reunion. I mean, there's so many people, and I think that part of that is the kitchen and it is the world that you created, Corky, because I think, you know, it does literally bring your whole family together, and food is a big thing in their family. And I have traveled with Mike and Tracy, and they talk about food so much that, and George is a bit of a foodie, and I know how to cook, so that's why he married me. It's not because I'm hot or anything. And, you know, thank God I could whip up a bolognese. But we've been on vacation, and, you know, Mike and I are more the like, just order shit and we'll eat everything. And Tracy and George will go through the menu and what should we have and what would be a good starter and how we would pair this with you. And I can't wait, by the way, to go on a Carnival cruise with you guys. I'm assuming you're the same way, right? It's an art.
We talk about food. We'll talk about a meal at lunch. We'll plan dinner. And if we go to a restaurant, we'll describe everything we ate the next day to each other.
Oh my God, you're the same way.
Yeah, we get this like visceral kind of pleasure just listening about what the other one has eaten.
And our philosophy is you never miss a meal. You're sure to have
Never miss a meal.
every
Right.
meal coming to
Right.
you. Yeah.
Mostly plants.
Yeah.
Mostly plants.
Mostly
Plants.
Good
Yeah.
segue, Mike.
Bring it full circle.
Get in there.
Yeah.
Mostly plants.
And let's talk about being a flexitarian, because when I first heard it, when Tracy first talked about it, I thought, oh, it's because she works out. She's a flexitarian, but it's actually a way of eating. So explain flexitarian to us and why we should all be flexitarians and what our pronouns are.
I mean, a flexitarian is someone who primarily follows a vegetarian diet, but with the inclusion of some meat. And the reason we should all be flexitarians is because it's probably the healthiest way that we can all eat. I mean, research shows that being a flexitarian you get the same health benefits as being a vegetarian. So reduced risk of chronic diseases, we all live longer, we weigh less, and then there's great environmental benefits as well.
And Corky, you sort of lean towards the chicken stuff. That's really your favorite, right?
Well, I'm a flexitarian.
Oh, I know. Oh, I know. We're all from the Church of
I was always a
Flexitarian.
very, very big meat eater when I was young. And then there was a point where I realized I couldn't eat any red meat anymore. And then I went a little heavier on the chicken and the fish. And now I find when I have a plant-based meal, it's often the one that I've loved the best.
Mike, I have to ask you a question. Have Tracy and your in-laws ever made anything that you didn't like and you were able to verbalize it without getting into trouble?
Honestly, I don't think so.
No, you love it all?
Yeah, I'm going to be really honest with you.
I'm sure there's some.
I mean, there's things I don't like, but they. I mean, I'm not crazy about yams, but the yams that they do at Thanksgiving like knock me out.
He's learned to like the things that he didn't like.
Yeah.
Is what he's trying to say.
Or else.
Yeah, but it's true. I used to hate like cucumbers and
Beets.
cauliflower, beets. I like a lot of stuff.
Mostly plants.
I like the good chicken. That was it. No, but it's like I said when this book, the first book came out, and then now this book, people ask me how do I describe it. I said, "This is what my life tastes like. This is what my life tastes like, and it tastes fantastic."
Yeah.
And it's just great. It's you know when they do the book, I mean I get to taste everything.
Yeah.
And then like she'll do something and then we'll have it and it's fantastic, and then she'll say she wants to change something and we'll have it again a week later and it's fantastic again. And it's just the best deal in the world.
Yeah. But is Mike the guinea pig? I mean,
One of them.
well,
I think
yeah.
all our
All of her,
husbands.
yeah, and kids.
And her dad was.
And
Yes.
kids. They're-
Well, the kids are probably more
kids.
honest, right?
Very
Oh,
honest.
very
yeah,
honest,
they,
yeah.
yeah.
Too honest sometimes.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so I do want to ask too, before, we're going to get to questions in a while, but I always like to know what people's favorite dish is, because everybody has a favorite, and I always think that sometimes when you have a favorite dish, it kind of gives a hint into the personality of the person.
Uh-oh.
So,
Not a pressure.
I just changed mine.
I know, I'm thinking, what should my
now everybody's got a spicy dish, right? No, but I'm curious as to what your favorite. When I look at this book, you say this. I'm the most proud, and I love this dish.
It's actually a really tough question.
Well, I am the Barbara
because-
Walters
Especially now,
situation.
because, I mean, that's the book I'm cooking from right now, and before it came out on Tuesday, I had it in my computer, in my Dropbox, and I'd go and get my recipes. So it does change, week to week it changes a little bit, but I'd say, now I feel like you're gonna read into what I'm saying.
I know. I'm an oak tree.
Corky, can I guess that yours is any kind of tandoori chicken or something with spice? Would that be appropriate?
I love the tandoori chicken recipe. There's a vegetable that I particularly love that I actually made for the first time about 2 weeks ago. And that's the asparagus recipe that you bake with cheese and nuts, and it is just to die from.
And it's in
so good.
season, right?
Yeah,
It's in
yeah,
season right now.
exactly.
Perfect.
It changes for me week to week. I'd say right now it's the orecchiette pasta with parsley pesto and shredded Brussels sprouts. I love pasta.
Oh, you're a complex person.
I'm very complex. Thank you.
Yes, no, you're layered. Trace?
I think I would say the salmon farro bowl. What does that say about me?
It says you're a little bit of everything, and when we mix you all up, you're just a tasty delight.
Salmon and farro from different parts of the world, so
Oh, see?
like
World traveler.
we're traveling.
Also, bowls are kind of a hip thing right now.
Yeah.
Like putting it all in one flexitarian situation.
Yeah, you eat a flexitarian bowl. It'd be
Yeah.
flexible.
And Mike,
Oh, I think I like the
cheeseburger?
I like the chicken piccata. Piccata. Piccata.
Chicken piccata.
I don't know what anything's called. It's just
Oh, with the
called,
broccoli rice.
give me some here.
Yeah.
And I like the tomato soup with the
With the chickpea
Croutons.
croutons.
chickpea croutons.
Yeah.
Good.
You like some?
I like it all.
So-
I just want to say one thing. Their obsession, Tracy's obsession, I can only speak for Tracy firsthand. Tracy's obsession with food extends to the fact that we can't go to a restaurant. I'm conditioned now. It's like Pavlovian. The food comes, I wait until the pictures are taken. And I mean, we go to restaurants a lot. We go to a lot, and we get pictures from like the pizzeria down on 98th, and just like, I mean, there's a picture of the pizza somewhere in the files.
Yeah. So when we've traveled together, I usually put the photo books together, and when Tracy sends me all her pictures, it's like Mike on a camel, pasta, a salad, squid, a huge lobster, you know, George and his golf clubs. Like anywhere we are, there's a few pictures of us, but they are the most gorgeous pictures of
Gorgeous
food.
picture of food.
Yeah, but that's your sweet spot. So one of the things I want to say, because I have a lot of friends that don't cook, and they get very overwhelmed by cookbooks. And I've actually tried some of your recipes, and even though they sound incredibly confusing, like the thing I made the other day, which is the shrimp and the noodles and the kale, and it was really, really easy. And so what would you say to people that say, oh my God, this is such a gorgeous book and I believe in the philosophy, but I'm terrified by recipes, or I'm terrified to start anything? What would you say to those friends of mine that are in the audience right now?
I think
Yes, Nancy Jarecki, I am talking directly to you.
recipes in this book are just laid out in such a way, it's really so easy to follow them. And I think we try to think ahead of what problems people might have, so everything is really laid out for you. So if you, almost any of them are relatively short, and you can do them, a lot of them in 35 minutes or more. But I think the amazing thing is how well they're laid out for cooks, whether they're beginners or advanced cooks.
We actually number the steps. I mean, we
Yes.
make it so clear.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
1, 2, 3,
Clear
4, 5.
cut.
Yeah.
And also, all four of us edit every single recipe. So if someone else has done a recipe, say like Lori's done a recipe, and I'm looking at it, something that, you know, I'll go through the whole thing and say, wait, this wasn't quite clear to me, and then Dana will do it, and then vice versa. So I think the fact that there's so many eyes on it makes them sort of foolproof.
The thing I've heard you guys talk about is like if there's cheese, it can be replaced with vegan cheese or
Yeah,
soy
there's a
cheese,
lot of
whatever.
ways to modify.
If there's nuts, you can do it with a different grain or whatever. You
Right.
can,
Yeah, we have tables that if you are gluten-free or dairy-free or vegan or vegetarian, there's ways to modify the recipes. And going back to what you asked about how people start off, I would also say just pick out a couple recipes. Do them, you know, get familiar with them, get comfortable. You can have a couple of favorites and make them every week if you want, and then from there, push your skills a little bit.
That's great advice. So I'm going to ask you the most superficial question, and I don't care because I know some people are thinking about it, and I'm just going to say it. And in this, you know, feminist world, it's probably not right, but you guys cook and eat. Food is your life. How are you all so thin? Really? How is that possible? My husband says to me all the time, Tracy eats like a linebacker, and you eat her all the time. You know, what is it?
You know what the
And
answer-
Ali, why aren't you?
The answer is mostly plants. When you eat more vegetables, you eat less of the high-calorie foods, and people who eat more plants have a lower BMI, they lose weight, so that's the answer.
And you fill up, right? Vegetables.
Oh, yes,
faster.
yes. They're very filling.
I'm not the only person that's ever asked you that, right?
No.
No, we get
I mean, we also, you know, we're lucky.
exercise
We have
and-
good genes.
yeah,
Well,
for metabolism. Yeah.
Corky is unbelievable.
Yeah.
So, Mike, do you want to jump in before I get very technical about stuff?
well, I just wonder, like the thing that I was always curious about, and I still am, because I love you guys all, and I know you all so well. But how do you not drive each other nuts working together? Like, if I had to work with my three sisters and my brother on anything, I'd get the cyanide out.
Yeah. No, I can't believe they all speak to each other.
And yeah, it's great. And you guys do the same. You work so hard on it, and you. I mean, they work so hard on this book that it blows me away, and I'm so happy to see people reacting to it, and they just deserve the attention. And it's really terrific.
Thank you.
But that having been said, I still don't know how I haven't killed each other.
You know what, we'll definitely get into little disagreements, but I think because we're siblings and a mother, we get over it like that. Like, we just forget. So, and
We
we're
have
all on
short
the same
memories,
page.
too.
We have very short memories at this
By
point.
the next day,
so
we're
we
like, wait,
can't
I
remember
think I
who
was
said what.
irritated her, but I don't quite remember
And you said,
what.
you kind of stay in your lanes. You guys know what you're good at, what you're not good at. And
Yeah.
we all know that mom's in charge no matter what.
Absolutely.
I have a question. Would you guys ever consider creating culinary utensils or things that go along with your cookbooks? Because I read, particularly with some recipes, and in the foreword of the book, they say these are your tools. These are the things that you need for a kitchen. And sometimes I read that and I think, but what kind of ladle or what kind of, would you ever sort of go into the culinary merchandise world?
Yeah, I
We
think
would love to, yeah.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that haven't been invented yet that we would like to see invented.
Does anybody know Jeff Bezos? Because I would like that to happen, actually. I would, you know, again, I can't say enough how, you know, it's more than a cookbook. It's a family. It's a way of life, and I just want more and more and more. I want a Corky apron. I want all of it. And I do want to tell our whole audience that they are going to be doing a book signing, and these books are going to be for sale after I'll talk, which is very exciting. And you can ask them all kinds of incredibly personal questions. I'll answer them. And I think we have questions, do we not? I saw a wave before. Are our questions ready? They will be in a moment. All right. In the meantime,
I was gonna
Mike
and I were going to sing
one
Puppy
thing.
Love, but go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you asked the question about should everyone be a flexitarian, there's just one thing that I kind of wanted to elaborate on, is that both Dana and Lori are vegetarians, and Corky and I, her mom and I, are flexitarians. So it's not necessarily that we think that everybody should be eating meat, but that eating mostly plants or all plants is kind of the healthiest way to be. But it's just not doable for a lot of people. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. It maybe feels right some of the time, 1 day a week, 2 days a week. So it's really about being flexible in your whole idea about the way you eat. And I mean, it's just the idea that it has to be all or nothing. I always think if it's all or nothing, you're going to try to do all and you're going to end up doing nothing. And so this is sort of the way to give yourself a break and just do it in the way that it works for you.
Because in a flexitarian diet, you can also have fish and chicken. Can you have red meat in moderation?
Oh, yes.
What Tracy does with our dinners is she'll do it like a side. It's like the main thing is the grain and the vegetable, but then there's like a side of salmon or like a little piece of chicken, and it's just like for me because I like a little protein. It's like great. It's like I'm mostly eating the vegetables and really loving them, but there's a bit of protein on the side.
Right.
It's
and
really changing the ratio on your plate, where I think for so many of us, years ago, you know, meat was in the center with vegetables on the side, and now it's, you know, plants in the center and meat as a flavoring, or like Mike said, just on the side.
And I think that our whole culture is changing the way we look at portions and how, I mean, even my husband, who's Fred Flintstone, he'll, you know, he sees livestock and he literally chases it. We're trying to like 72 ounces per person, George, is too much steak. So, I mean, I also think that in the culture, we're all trying to do that. I just read this one question, which is a great question. What is the most difficult ingredient you guys have worked with?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I know what you're going to say.
What were you thinking of? Which one?
The frika.
Oh, yes,
That's
yes.
a good one.
You know, we really love ancient grains and whole grains, and we love incorporating them. And new one, you know, quinoa came in, and everybody was using it. Then farro came in, and we're like, let's experiment with new grains. So I was like, I'm going to do frika, and I cooked frika.
Frika?
Frika.
Frika.
Yes, Freekah. And it smelled like gasoline. Maybe some of you have had it and it's been delicious, but that one didn't work for me.
And did you all smell it?
No, we didn't get to try
I was home alone.
And what's, I mean, that sounds disgusting, and I'm no longer subscribing to the Freaka Chronicle, but
I'm going to stop at Freaka.
Yeah.
Hearing you talk, what's it called? Freaka. Oh, no,
yeah,
thanks.
yeah, don't Freaka.
No, I'm passing
Freaka.
Freaka.
But what about, there are some ingredients that are hard to work with, like that aren't, like with your hand, like things that fall or don't stick or don't stay together, or, you know, a lot of people crust chicken with stuff that I was talking to you the other day about, like I can't get a good crust on a chicken. I mean, there are some of those kind of difficult recipes too.
Can't think of any
Oh, wow.
like that.
Okay,
So
I guess
just-
I'm a failure. Not.
With chicken, if you want a great crust, the secret to it is not disturb it. If you're frying it in some oil, just leave it for 10 minutes or 15 minutes and don't try to turn it over. And then you will get an amazing crust on your chicken.
Thank you for answering a question that has been bothering me for a long time. Okay, this is a natural follow question. Biggest disasters. Don't say we haven't had any disasters.
Yes, well, Lori and I were making a dish that we worked over for many hours. And when we finished, we realized, we were thinking of putting it in the book, but when we finished, we realized it wasn't a great dish. So after all those hours, we had to.
Why wasn't it great? You burn it?
It was a dish that we had eaten in Jamaica so many years before. It's stuffed chayote or chocho with ground beef and breadcrumbs. And
What's chocho? I don't know what that is.
Chayote?
Chayote?
It's like a squash.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And I had like jotted down notes in Jamaica because I thought it was so delicious, like when I was 15. And so we were recreating it.
Yes.
And we were at my apartment, and I had to leave the apartment.
Really?
Oh, but I remember you also gave me a sample
Yes,
for
I
Mitchell,
did.
my
Sorry.
husband, to
Sorry,
try
Mitchell.
because I don't eat meat. And he took a few bites and he's like,
So that
like he
was a
wanted to be.
total-
He's like, I
yeah.
don't think so.
So are you off chochos now forever?
Chocho's out.
Yeah,
No,
chocho.
What?
Chocho.
Chocho's out now. I had a
You had
early
a fail?
on, I had a terrible fail. I was making this vegetable soup.
I was going to tell that story.
And
How you tell it?
And I had spent all day, I just thought, I'm gonna make the stock from scratch. And I put all of these vegetables in, and I'd been cooking it all day, all day, all day. And I was like, okay, I think it's good. I tasted it, it was perfect. I went over to the sink. I put the bowl in the sink, and then I went and I get the vegetables. I have the colander, and I start pouring the vegetables into the colander, into the other sink. And Michael walks in and goes, "Don't you want to save that liquid? I bet that would make an amazing soup." As the
Pour it down the drain.
entire, all I had was soggy 12-hour vegetables.
Yeah,
I had
that's
thrown
what we
out
had for
the
dinner was-
entire pot of soup.
That's what you had for
Soggy
dinner.
potatoes and soggy carrots.
And he enjoyed it.
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah. Back to your roots, right? Mike?
You're going to love this.
So speaking of vegetables, there's lots of children in this family. Children don't particularly like vegetables. How did you get them to eat their vegetables?
I think if you make them delicious enough, they'll eat them. I think we're cooking with vegetables so much differently than we were a long time ago. I mean, now we're, roasting and sautéing.
Well, it sounds like
bringing
what
out the
Tracy
best
just made is what we used to be given
Yes.
when we were little. Yes.
I mean, I remember Corky making Brussels sprouts and boiling them. And I
Yes,
just remember the
that's what-
smell in the kitchen was awful. But now we know, right? We all
Yeah,
roast them. and
roast
they're
them, and they're
delicious, yeah.
delicious.
Oh, they were boiled before?
Well, you put them in
boiled
boiling
Brussels
water.
sprouts
It was
smell
a
like
very
farts.
English way of cooking everything, was to put it in water. All the vegetables went in
But also they
boiling.
weren't seasoned. I remember as a kid, there was no seasoning ever.
No,
Yes.
not with vegetables.
And do all your kids, I know your kids do your kids, everybody eat vegetables?
I think that an easy way to get them to start eating is if you add them to pasta, because kids love pasta, and they'll, at the beginning, just push away the greens, and then they'll, by mistake, get a bite and go, that's not so bad.
Right. See, my kids wouldn't let food touch, so I couldn't ever.
Oh, that's hard.
Just gave them s'mores and called it a day. This is a question that goes to my idea that you should do, Pollan pans. Pollan pans. What is the best pan to cook vegetables in? So I'm gonna phrase it and say, you are in college, you have a hot plate. What is the one pan that you can have?
I would say cast iron.
Probably. Yeah, because you can put that in the oven too if you have an oven.
Cast iron?
Yeah.
Yes, we
I think
can.
it
I would agree with that.
Cast iron
imparts a lot
skillet.
of flavor
Yes.
in whatever you're making.
So you can fry, you can broil, you can bake.
Everything.
Yeah, everything.
So that's all you need.
Did you guys say anything
Yeah.
else?
I would say so, yeah.
Cast iron?
I think the other
Yes.
thing you need, I mean, you can't do it with a hot pot, but is a rim baking sheet.
Yeah.
Because you just roast all your vegetables on that.
And your food and your vegetables
Everything.
all
Yeah,
on the
everything.
one- yeah, you can do everything on
How do you not overcook vegetables, by the way?
How do you what?
Not overcook
I mean,
them.
you have to watch your time.
I don't understand. What do
You can't
Don't
be
get
watching
distracted.
TV. You can't be watching SVU when
what? How do I
When you-
binge walk? Don't burn them. Don't
burn
overboil them. But in your books, you are very clear about, and in fact, we did GMA together, and a lot of people came up to me and they said, you asked Tracy, you're on medium heat. And people like us forget that those are very specific information that we need. Otherwise, everything would be on high
Yeah.
in my
Yes.
house.
Right.
But you are very specific about
Yeah.
that. And somebody was asking, how do you not overcook vegetables? Oh, here's a good one. Now we're getting into like the 70s game show. What spice could you not live without? Go.
Oh, I like this.
Pepper.
Pepper.
Yeah.
Over salt?
I'd say pepper. Well, you know, I wasn't thinking that of a spice because salt you just need.
Okay.
It's a given.
Okay.
So I'd say the basics.
Is salt a spice? It is, right?
I don't know.
Seasoning. I don't
technically.
see this as
No?
yeah.
Yes?
Mineral.
It's a mineral. What mineral can you not live without?
Salt.
Gold.
Okay, so pepper. Corky.
Oh, one that I've sort of discovered, I guess a lot of in this year's smoked paprika. I just love the depth that it gives to dishes.
Smoked paprika?
Yeah,
What's the
smoked.
difference between regular paprika?
Right. Usually the other is called
Sweet.
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 But this is smoked. And it gives a depth to dishes that I love. And it's a little spicy, so you have to be a little careful with the amount that you use. But it really perks up a lot of dishes when you put a bit in it.
So I would say first pepper, because I use pepper on everything. I love cumin a lot, and I've been using that a lot recently, yeah.
So I guess this is just dried spices, right?
Get crazy.
So I would go with a fresh. I'd go with a fresh herbs.
You could
but
go with, let's open it up for fresh herbs too, yeah.
God damn it, I'm going to say basil.
Basil, say it.
Basil.
Fresh basil.
Fresh basil.
Okay. Mike, you want to play?
Yeah, sure. I would say basil. It took forever. And I'm Canadian. I say produce. You get produce. Get basil at the produce store. I think I like pepper. And in fact, it was really
Yeah, you
hard
love
thing for me to
pepper.
learn because I'm from like Irish folks. That's exotic spice. I mean, my mom could open any kind of can.
Yeah.
Fantastic at it. And we'd get, Thanksgiving, we'd have that real kind of cranberry sauce that slides out of the can.
Yeah.
Really great. But I would put pepper on anything, just automatic, just default. It would come and I'd put pepper on it.
Yeah.
So then I married a cook, and I learned very quickly you don't do that.
Right.
She puts the food down and you don't put pepper on it until you taste it and you enjoy it the way it's meant to be.
What was a typical meal that you would eat before you met Tracy?
Oh, as a bachelor?
Yeah.
Just anything, boiling bag stuff.
Yeah.
Because I had the hot plate.
You ate canned chicken, which I'd never even
Yeah, I ate
seen
canned chicken.
before.
I ate plain wrap anything.
I didn't know that was a
Yeah,
thing.
in the 80s, they had this big plain wrap thing where it would be just like chips, tuna, and that's all it was saying. It was tuna, and it was cheap, and I could be rat for all I knew. But I just ate anything quick and fast, Hot Pockets.
Yeah. Hot Pockets.
And when I was a kid, I grew up with like Chef Boyardee and Dinty Moore and and
All the canned goods.
Bird's Eye,
Yeah.
Giant. When I had vegetables, and so it's different. So yeah, I come into this life, and like I said, this is what my life tastes like. It
Yeah.
tastes amazing. I have cardamom and turmeric and amazing stuff.
Smoked, yeah. So do you guys ever have a moment where you just go, screw it, I'm having a Rice Krispie treat, or I'm in a menopause meltdown, I'm gonna have a ho-ho? Does that ever happen?
For me, not a Rice Krispie treat, probably Cracker Jacks.
Cracker Jacks?
Brings me
I
way
like-
back.
I like Cracker
Yes,
Jacks,
reminds you of being young, and I love Cracker Jacks.
But do you believe in the
Michael does-
philosophy
I
that
know
every
he
once in a while, like,
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You know, when we were growing up, Corky was not the mom who said you can eat, 2 cookies or you can't have Hostess or whatever. We had everything in our house, and she didn't put any rules around it. And I think we're lucky in that it resulted in us really liking the good food more. So we will eat it, but it's not forbidden.
which was so smart, Corky, because my kids, whenever we had a kid over that wasn't allowed sugar in their house, you would find them in the pantry choking on marshmallows. I mean, really, my girls would come in and they'd be like, no, she's just scooping out the sugar. So, everything in moderation, hashtag mostly plants, hashtag, every once in a while you have a hormonal imbalance and you need chocolate chip pancakes. So, and before we end, because I know people want to buy books and get them signed, tell me about how your son, your brother-in-law, Michael, sort of coined mostly plants. Because it sort of comes from, it has a story behind it.
How he coined his
Well, he kind of named the book, right?
Yes,
He did?
yes,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Well, he was always, even from a very young age, loved gardening, always planting vegetables and stuff like that. So it always meant a lot to him, and he was a big vegetable eater. And I think that as he grew up, he just could see the importance of eating vegetables over, just concentration on meats and stuff like that. And it's sort of his haiku that he had come up with, which I think so many people now really pay attention to.
And in terms of the book, we had the idea for the book. We knew we wanted it to be flexitarian,
Right.
and so we would actually Google what's another way to say mostly plants.
Oh, yeah, Michael pops up all
Primarily
the time.
produce. We just had we
Right.
couldn't come up with anything. So we called him up and we said, we're just trying to figure out what to call this book because we know exactly what it is and we know exactly what we want to say. So it's kind of like a mostly plant type of thing, and we're just trying to find another way to say it. And he was like, how about mostly plants? We were like,
You're like, yeah, okay.
It says it all. Works. It really says
exactly.
it
So
all.
he thought of the idea.
No, I love it. I love the title. It hashtags very easily.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for being such an amazing family, a family that we can look up to. And mostly plants. Go buy it. They'll sign it. Tell your friends to buy it. And by the way, I encourage you to buy a stack of them. When you go to people's houses, people get very excited when you
Hostess
give it
gift.
to them. They're good hostess gifts. Hanukkah gifts, Passover gifts, Easter's coming up. So thank you very much for being in here, Pollan family.